Honorary Member of Parliament Imraan Subrathie, live from Parliament on the line. Imraan, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to News in Focus Live on Radio Al Ansar International.
Walaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Yunus, and greetings to yourself and to your listeners. It's so nice to again be with you this week.
Yeah, shukran for joining us. I know you had a tiring day. You just finished in Parliament. Now, we were discussing three topics. One was Imran Azi's inquest and update. MK files a motion of no confidence on Ramaphosa, and the state has reported the functioning of the GNU, and we went through some of the issues that have been raised, and I know many of the parliamentarians have been chatting about these issues. Now, you just finished Parliament now, and I know you're on your way with the bus to your residence, which is at 20 to 10, so you're going to have a long night. Tell us, what was the sitting about today? I know they were talking about the appropriation bill, and they were expecting support from the DA, and there's been deals being cut. Perhaps just tell us what was today's sitting about and what was the outcome.
Yeah, no, thanks, Yunus. Once again, it's always a pleasure to join you. In fact, I just walked into my apartment here at Acacia Park. I just arrived now. So Parliament started at 10 a.m. this morning, and we finished at 9. It was probably one of the most important days in Parliament today. It was the approval of what we call the appropriations. Appropriation simplified is the various, we had to go through 42 various votes today. What happened earlier, the much talked about budget vote that we had, we had the V1 and V2, what happens, just so that people understand, that is more where the minister decides, how are we going to fund this budget? Big hoo-ha about, and that's where the whole VAT came in. The minister said, I think we should use VAT increase, and we managed to resolve that. Now that we've ascertained how we're going to fund this budget, now is the issue of around the various departments that constitute government, and these are various departments, from communications to police to education to health. Each of them, they make a claim for their share of that budget, of that big chunk. And today was the opportunity in which we went and and prior to that, what happened was in Parliament, we had 42 debates that took place. I was involved in 2 or 3 debates where each department now presents their plans for the year, their strategic intentions, and they come before us, the ministries, and they say, this is what we need, and this is why we need it, and we'll debate it, and we'll argue it, and then we'll support it, or we won't support it, as the case may be. But alhamdulillah, all votes were largely supported. And today was the day where the entire House sits. So though individual debates was what we call mini plenaries, today was the full sitting of the House. It is what we call in parliamentary terms a 3-line vote, meaning that every single member of Parliament must attend unless you're absolutely sick and there's really a compelling reason. Because today's vote is very important from a constitution point of view to approve. And therefore, we need warm bodies in the House to approve those 42 votes. And that took the entire day, because for every vote, notwithstanding the fact that we managed to have majority through the GNU, the opposition party, largely the MKP and the EFF, constantly call for what we call division, meaning that you go and now you have to count votes. And that is why we needed warm bodies. So today, alhamdulillah, it was a very, very tiring day, very, very stressful day. But Allah shukr, we managed to approve all 42 votes were approved. It's a very significant day, because had it not happened, there would have been huge, huge consequences. In fact, in the very first bill, the appropriations bill that Honorable Memani presented, that was the first one that we were very worried about. Once he was approved, then we went to the 42 different votes. I had to give a declaration in communications and digital technologies. And so that was what our day was all about. There was a lot of suspense leading up to it, whether we're going to get the support of our GNU partners, and that was consuming us heading up to this budget. It wasn't so much the votes, but it was more preparation. Sorry,
Imran, did you get the support from the GNU partners?
Yeah, alhamdulillah, the biggest GNU partner is the DA, as you can imagine. I mean, they had about 75 warm bodies in the House, and the ANC had about 145. We have 159 seats, excluding the president, who's the 160th person, but he's not a member of parliament. And maybe some of them were sick, etc. So we had about 145, 148, and the DA, which is a significant partner, so was there. So maybe just a little bit of the talks about, because I know in your poster you said the GNU. So the suspense around that, Yunus, was the DA following or the president's removing Andrew Whitfield as the deputy minister of in the Ministry of Trade or Industry. They basically threatened the president and said that if you don't dismiss certain ministers that they had issues with, such as, for example, the higher education minister, and I think the land affairs minister, human settlements minister, if you don't do that, then we're going to have issues and those types of things, and we're not going to vote, etc. So that was really an area of concern, because the implications of non-approval of this vote has significant consequences for the country. In that basically what it means is, if this wasn't approved, that means all that money that's sitting there that we need to provide service delivery to our people, whether it's COCTA, the money that needs to go out to the municipalities, no money can leave until this vote takes place. There is a small portion that will go out, but largely, by and large, service delivery, whether it's NISFAS, bursary, whatever the case may be, that makes the wheels turn in the government, that can't go out unless today was achieved. So they had threatened us to really not support us, and then what was really concerning was last week on Wednesday was I mentioned earlier that we have budget vote debates in Parliament before today, and last week Wednesday was budget vote number one. Budget vote number one was the vote in the president, where President Cyril Ramaphosa himself came to Parliament and had to, like all executives, explain, this is how the budget, my presidency needs this money, this is what we're doing and what we're going to do, etc. And there was a whole lot of debate around that day, and various political parties would have debated, etc. But what was really noticeable was, and that's generally the most attended budget vote, because it's that of the presidency. And generally, the debaters that take part would be ministers and deputy ministers. And what was really concerning was there was no DA ministers in the House when the president presented his budget vote. No ministers, no way they deputy ministers. And even for the next day, when the president then responded, because what happens, the president then responds to all the criticisms that were given on day one. Again, I think there was just one minister of forestries was there, but generally the ministers didn't come. And that silence from your GNU partners, not attending something like that, there's a telltale, and that was concerning to us. And I think we were quite concerned. I was really concerned, because I whip, one of my responsibility is a whip of the ANC in Parliament, and part of the whip's duty is to ensure that when we're going into Parliament, when we're going into votes, we have managed to get our people to be behind us. So when we go in to do the work of Parliament, we're able to achieve our end objective. And that was very unsettling. They're not coming in. I think what changed it, and I think there was a sort of admission, the president made a change. He removed Minister of Higher Education yesterday, and the new deputy minister became the minister, and the former premier of KwaZulu-Natal, Dr. Became the deputy minister. So there was a change, and I think that was probably a very strategic move by the president, in that he made the change. And today, alhamdulillah, so I think it all went well. But again, last week I was sitting with one of the very senior members, and he was going through the whole list with me. He says, Imraan, if those guys don't come, then this is what we're going to have to do. It would have been really down to the wire. Literally, if the DA didn't come, we would have been really a difference of 10 votes either way. It could go. We'd probably go our way, but 10 votes is very small line. But alhamdulillah, it all came through. So that was a lot of suspense. And given the fact that, so we managed to overcome that impasse. And I don't think the DA is going to want to leave the GNU. I think for them, it's an opportunity to really, you have to have a seat at the table. Yunus, is very important. I always say to people, when you have a seat at a table, no matter how, at a critical table, no matter how difficult things get, don't walk away, because that seat at the table gives you an opportunity to input and make the changes. And then maybe, you've always been talking about political advocacy and getting involved. And that's why I say to people, you know what, guys, our entire lives, we think politics is bad. It shouldn't be a place. But I always say that's where the decisions are made. Like today, that's where decisions were made. If you're not sitting around the table, you're not going to be part of the solution. So I don't think the DA is going to give up anything. They're not going to walk away. And I think what's important, and maybe we'll move on, is what's important is I think I learned this in my small journey. Parliament cannot be a theatre. And I think, unfortunately, the party is known to be theatrics. Andrew Woodfield was nothing extraordinary. President Nelson Mandela, I mean, yes, he dismissed his own wife because she had taken an overseas trip. And there was another in the history of politics, there was another member of the ANC that was dismissed because he traveled overseas. So Andrew Woodfield was nothing extraordinary. It was just following the protocol. But you can't keep having a theatricizing. We need to put the country first. We need to put the people first. We can't use these as a theater. So that's what I learned today, because ultimately everyone came together, because nobody's going to walk away from the table. It's too valuable. So yeah, that was what was all the suspense about, but it all ended well today.
Yeah, it's in line on what we were discussing about the GNU, the performance. Hassan spoke about the economic impact. Now, last week in the show, you mentioned that the Speaker of Parliament had referred the Mkonazi matter to the portfolio committees for processing any feedback, because we did look at reports that are coming through. It's going to be an investigation taking place, and outcomes of that, that commission of inquiry into this thing will then determine which way they go. In the meanwhile, the Minister of Police has taken leave for a couple of weeks. Gwedi Mantashe is acting. What impact he's going to make is questionable, but then Firoz Kichalia comes in. So any feedback on the situation, just for the benefit of our listeners?
Yeah, I think just two things. Let me just quickly, something that I learned today, and I think it's useful just to share with your listeners, is that the President's Commission of Inquiry is very, very crucial, because the allegations made by General Mkwanazi cut across judicial, it cuts across the judges, magistrates, it cuts across executives, where he's implicated the Minister of Police. And it's mentioned also there may be MPs, etc. So it's cut across all what we call three spheres of government, both across the legislative, executive, and judiciary. So the president's choice of taking a judge who will be retiring soon and placing him as the chairperson of that judicial commission that oversees and cuts across all three, I think was a very prudent decision. And what's important about that, that will amass a lot of evidence that can then be used in courts of. So that is the first point I wanted to just to deposit. So last week I mentioned that the speaker had given direction to two portfolio committees, and I think I indicated a third one. But the third portfolio committee decided, that is the Standing Committee on Intelligence, they decided not to be part of this one here. So the two committees that took an instruction from the speaker was the Portfolio Committee on Police and the Portfolio Committee on Justice and Constitutional Development. So since the time that emanated to now, they have been meeting, and they've come up with a plan of action. And today, alhamdulillah, the last order of the day, and I was hoping it would have been dealt sooner. The last order of the day was a report by this joint portfolio committee of police and justice, and a debate around that. And this and the results of it. And the result of what was decided upon was to establish what we call a parliamentary ad hoc committee, which will deal. And the difference between an ad hoc committee and a joint committee is a joint committee has a longer life. An ad hoc committee will only exist for the period and duration of the issue on hand. And that is, the resolution was passed to establish this ad hoc committee comprising of 11 parliament MPs from these two committees. They will comprise, I think, of 4 ANC, 2 DA, 2 MK, 1 EFF, and 2 from the smaller parties. So an 11-member committee. They will have a 3-month time frame, and their job would be to do a deep dive and interrogate what is going on in terms of the allegations made by General Mkonazi, and within 3 months report back. I think we've given them till 31st of October to come back to Parliament with their presentation and their findings. So that is the progress that we've made. So alhamdulillah, that was the last order of the day. That was the motion that the African National Congress brought to Parliament, and that was unanimously adopted. So now we have an 11-man ad hoc committee established by Parliament that will take a deep dive into the allegations made by General Mkhwanazi with a feedback time of by the 31st of October. So that would also the question would ask is that it's a very it's very focused, it's a smart goal, it's specific, measurable, time driven. In 3 months' time, we'll understand from them. And also, obviously, there will be certain cut acrosses as well. There will be information that will be shared between the Judicial Commission. You know, the Judicial Commission is a more medium to long term, at least 6 months. It could go on beyond 6 months. But the ad hoc committee will report back to Parliament in 3 months' time.
Thanks for that input. Imraan, we're running out of time. Just one final question. The ANC will be hosting a litigation from the Palestinian government. Tell us about the reasons for their visit and how can the public expect to engage them? Because I know they will be, in Johannesburg and other areas, but on the 28th, they will be in Durban, and Al-Ansar Foundation, together with United for Palestine, will be hosting them, at our hall at 207 West Road. But also they will be at the ANC offices on Monday afternoon. So can you tell us more about this visit by the Palestinians and exactly what was the purpose of the visit and how can the public engage with them?
Well, obviously, as you and your listeners know, that the ANC as a liberation movement has had relationships with liberation movements and governments around the world. It's a bilateral relationship the ANC has as a political party. So similarly with the Palestinian government, we have a long-standing relationship dating back to many, many years. So the whole idea behind this visit is it's a visit by them to come to South Africa, and the understanding that I've been given by the head of the international relations of the African National Congress in Luthuli House. I think they're coming here to really kind of like appreciate what South Africa has done in terms of going to ICJ. That is one of the main objectives is to come down here. And I think more importantly, from our point of view and from ANC, and I think from the solidarity and from Al-Ansar, and that's where is to really, I think, reimagine the future of Palestine, Yunus. And that's where I see the significant amount of potential. We need to be able to, one thing is for sure, is that the Palestinians must decide how they want to run their country. But I think South Africa, as an ally, as a friend, as a partner of good standing and a well-respected government that managed to keep it right, even despite losing the majority vote, the ANC has still managed to put together a GNU. The idea behind it is really to share from our experience with them that how do we think you should put this together? Because you must understand, in the Palestinian, there has to be a resolution, inshallah, of this whole genocide has to come to an end. And we need to have a critical conversation of how we imagine the future. And also to find out from them that, what are the problems, what are the challenges, and how can we, as a country, as a people, really get to know from them grassroots what's going on there. And how can we, if you're part of government, tell us what's going on. Why is the food not coming in? What can we do? So this is an opportunity for engagement. This is an opportunity for us to ask the right questions. And also it's an opportunity for us to tell them that, listen, guys, this is what I think you should be doing right. This is where I think you guys are not doing well. This is what I think we think as South Africans you should be doing. It shouldn't just be exclusively one party. Like all countries, there's diversity, there must be social cohesion, there must be representation. So it's really an opportunity to input and to provide guidance, leadership in terms of what we think should take place from our example, and also to really engage them what's going on at the grassroots, and to remove some of the concerns that we may have about, why is, I mean, let's face it, Yunus, it's getting back to worse. I mean, now I believe I'm getting messages coming in where now people are dying of starvation. So the genocided state has reached its objective of using food as a weapon of mass destruction. People are now dying of starvation. I saw one post that came to me about the stages of starvation, and the final stages. Palestinians have reached the final stages of starvation. And that is why that is what compelled us. One of the reasons why United for Palestine in this week also wrote up to the president to tell him that, we need to do something. We can't promise anything. And what's important for us always, Yunus, is we must just do what's within our means. That's what isn't within our control, is what our hands can allow us to do. And maybe it's useful just to reflect and appreciate last week, as I mentioned, when the president was doing his budget vote. The president acknowledged when he presented the vote, he acknowledged the challenges that we are as a country are facing due to our what sanctions the Americans have imposed, particularly around the AIDS withdrawal of the AIDS funding. We are really struggling. He acknowledged that, and he also acknowledged the fact that the export tariffs increased to 30% is also an impact, and he acknowledged that. But Alhamdulillah, our President Cyril Ramaphosa, after acknowledging the challenges we have, he was not shy to spend at least 4 to 5 lines of his speech dedicated to Palestine. That South Africa remains resolute in its support of the people of Palestine, in its ICG case. And in fact, he said, I'm paraphrasing, he said, shame upon those international leaders that are watching a genocide unfolding and are not responding to it. So our president, alhamdulillah, continues to stand by the people of Palestine. And also what's important, I think, I hope I get the city right, Bologna, I think it's called, in Colombia, where the Hague Group met, and 12 countries took a decision, a 6-point plan, to really start to do something about ending this genocide. That includes, amongst other things, looking at the bilateral relations, diplomatic ties, trade sanctions, international lobbying. And South Africa, again, together with Colombia, are signatories to that. And that has a 6-point plan. So we felt, given the fact that the president has endorsed and supporting the people of Palestine, alhamdulillah, and given the fact that the Hague Group has come up with the 6-point plan with South Africa as a signatory to it, with other 12 countries, let us now reach out to the government to say, listen, guys, please help the people of Palestine, whether it is diplomatic sanctions, trade sanctions. Let's start somewhere. Let's squeeze, because that is what ultimately led to the emancipation of South Africans from the clutches of apartheid. That's what's ultimately the international sanctions, the diplomatic isolation, etc., whether it was all types of sanctions and isolation, ultimately made the apartheid rulers of this country realize that this is not sustainable. We believe that now is the time for South Africa to lead an international charge to help the people of Palestine through means that really affects people, and that is through sanctions, through diplomatic ties, etc. So yeah, that is what we also did as United Palestine. But again, Yunus, let me invite all your listeners on Monday to Radio Al Ansar at 6 p.m. We will be having a public engagement with this Palestinian government delegation that's down. During the day, we will be engaging with them within the ANC. We will be having engagements with students as well. But in the evening, the opportunity of the public to engage with them, to come through, and really, as I said, let's find solutions. Let's engage, because we have to speak to all parties. Because ultimately, in any solution, all parties must be part of the solution. So I'm really inviting everybody from Radio Al Ansar, and I know Al Ansar is our partner. So I'm sure, Yunus, you will be also inviting our listeners next week, Monday. I think it's the 28th, inshallah, at 6 p.m. at the Al Ansar Hall.
So yeah, there you are. I think Imraan has mentioned that there's an opportunity to engage with the comrades from Palestine. We will give us first-hand information on what's happening and what support they need and how they're going to have this breakthrough. It's going to be at the Al Ansar Convention Center, 207 West Road. There are posters that are out on social media. We will be announcing on radio, today, tomorrow, giving details. And we hope we get a good response coming through at 6 p.m. next Monday. Inshallah, it'll be a beneficial engagement with these Palestinian parliamentarians that are coming through. Imraan, shukran for updating us on various information. I know you're tired. You had a long session in Parliament, and as usual, you always respond to our invitations. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give you the strength to continue with the good work you're doing and joining us. And enjoy the rest of the evening and get fresh for tomorrow's meeting. I'm sure you'll be back in Durban soon. And join us on Monday to meet these Palestinians, both midday at the ANC offices and subsequently in the evening at Al Ansar Convention Center. Shukran, Imraan, and Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakallah, Yunus. Thank you also for having me on your show.